This is my formal presentation. So this is the motto of the center, that we are trying to work for a better community, and I took this from Dr. Ahmed Smaili. So I took the rights to use it as our logo or as a motto, and he accepted. So, done. So I was saying something about how it started, and I will here go immediately into showing a few pictures. Actually, it will almost be all about pictures now. And okay, so this is civil engineering. You can see it immediately. But this is done in the summer camp. This is a house that is being rebuilt after the July war in one of the villages in South Lebanon. And these are two students. You may know, you may not know them anymore. They have left because this was in 2007, the year after the war. And they are doing basically civil works. They were working on the ground, but they were really doing help with the municipality of the village. I think this was the Plaili village. It happened we have one of those people whom helping us in the center is from Plaili. We usually depend on, to start any project, any community work, we start on the people whom we know. I started doing project with civil engineering. My colleague Rabia Shibli started with landscape. Others started with health, and we were experimenting with our own. So basically, this was an activity, I would call it a summer camp. It was initiated by the Civil Engineering Society. I was at the time the initiator in the first one, the year before, and you can see that it starts with activities. They can be working here on surveying and some. Assessing an old house, an old historic house. They produced maps, and some of them were used, some of them were just brought to the municipality as documentation. If they want to rehabilitate this later, they have all the documents. This is in they're working on a mud house, actually. It's a real mud house in Arc-en-Ciel in Ta'nayid Shtura. This is how they build all their houses, sustainable housing with mud houses, so our students were there. This is some tree planting or cleaning. This تشجيل شوي جاكل anyway. So trying to impress here with because summer camps are also fun. I can guarantee you that. Yeah, I go there now. I get a bit tired, and you'll see that. But these also have interesting activities. Like the students here are teaching. This is in Irsal. This was pre. Syrian war. These are kids are learning to photography, and they did a nice exhibition at the end, and they got certificates as professional young photographers. Other of our teams, these are electrical computer engineering here. They were teaching computer skills for kids. Interestingly, in Arsal, all kids who were taking these lessons were 26 females and 3 males, because all the kids who are males are working بالكسارات, okay? Because they get a little bit money, and they now can hardly write and read and write. This is the major problem that was happening in Ersal. Later on, a year later, one of our teams in FYP worked on the issue of the quarries, because they were trying to find good solutions for the village on how to use this efficiently. But it's not just about doing work, it's meeting the communities. So here, this is a meeting in the Baladiyi, in the mayorship, with the mayor, with all the team. Here we already grew from 10 students into about 40 students that are spreading in many villages. So it's just like they get to know how things function in areas, in villages. They meet with kids, they play football, they do some outings in interesting areas where just behind you have Palestine. So you really can see where these camps happen. And of course you enjoy while you think that this is going to be a nice job, that this is collecting tobacco. But these 5 did not know that the second day they had to go at 5 o'clock in the morning to work out all these tobacco things and bring them to their mission. So they spent like 12 hours doing this. This is not yet the marijuana, but you know, this is the hidden side. But at the same time, you have fun. These are fun nights. And also, you as boys, this is Isa, if you know Isa, Saab, you know, you try to pretend that you have learned how to do fire because you're in a village and, you know, you're just come in, tashbih, and, you know, we can do it ourselves. And, but there is also a serious part. And this is actually how it started. The serious part started in camps, at least for our own teams. These are landscape students who teamed with civil students at the time. And then when they were there, they did the design of a public space in one village. And another interesting project which developed and still is developing today, how to work in on a water resources problem and landscaping at the same time, and agriculture in the village of Marwahin. Marwahin is at the tip of the border with Palestine. So you can go there and you can say hello to the neighbors, and it's just very accessible. So you do work, and this is not just for fun, because at the end, what you see behind you, behind the nice pictures here of the team, the municipality, and they presented them their project, and this is taken seriously because some of these were implemented. And eventually, this is another project in another village came in, they presented the work, and 3 of these actually were done in that camp. 2 of them have been implemented. You also get rewarded by certificates from the village, and they give it to you, and they're very proud. This is Baladiyat Aitarun. And also, you can see that some teams work hard, and you sweat, but because of the sun. You sit down and you still sweat, and you pretend you're doing something. But that's not the only story that you will see here, because while you're sweating, others are really mudding. This is Danilo from Costa Rica, who joined us with 2 people, and I think many of you have met them then at the camp. But the best part is that when you have a nice chair of the department and pretends he's supporting, he comes in on half a day, he doesn't even sweat. He takes pictures in the shade, he makes it like, you know, good boys, good girls, and then he comes back, and you can see there is not a single sweat on his face or kaza. But he enjoyed. I think we thank him, we really thank him, because it was a nice support for the team. Well, that's another story. So, Kamin, going fast into these, this is then the second phase, or this is evolving, and yet we are not at what we're calling the academic level. But this is another camp, and this presentation, interestingly now, it became more of a structured camp. So the camp gets prepared, and for some reason, the CS have not even discussed it this year, so I need to really know what's happening. Eh? We've never mentioned anything to anyone. Good. Good. Relax, I'm happy to hear it. Because Nihal, Isa, and a few team worked very hard on this camp. And when I say they worked hard, it means that they started putting it as a structure before they go. It's like they invite teams, they study the projects, and they develop meaningful experiences now. It's not like sporadic activities here and there. And this was happening over the years. But in this case, it was amazing because they brought many teams, and these teams prepared the work beforehand. They spent like 2 to 3 months. It's not yet in a classroom, but still it started the idea of let's do something where we think it has an effect and can be implemented during the camp. But then it has to be studied and all done, prepared before. So I'm going to go fast here because there are many interesting experiences, and 2 of them, or 1 of them at least, will be quite meaningful on how it proceeded. So this is actually, I borrowed it from the CS. They actually did this presentation during the camp, the very last day, and they made the presentation to the whole team and invited the villagers who participated. It was a nice community celebration at the end in the hotel where we spent the last night, and they partied and we went to sleep. But you know now it grew up, right, to 120 students. And this is 120 because we couldn't, we couldn't, as a center whom also we're teaming with them, we couldn't accommodate more. I mean, where do we put them? Who pays for these? Because these have also some costs. We have some funding, but also we have to cover some costs. And the projects were done again in the south. There have been actually many areas, 3 times in the Bekaa, now I think 2 or 3 times in the south and 1 in Akkar. So it's been moving, and this year, ما بعرف, we'll see, right? Beirut, Ras Beirut. Actually, we have 2 projects بقلب Ras Beirut, okay, but I'm not going to bring them up today. So you have these villages, and if I go fast into them, in a school in Sur, this is a school which invited the team to do some work inside, and rehabilitation of benches, teaching computers, making some nice planting, and a wall painting, a very amazing wall painting from the team. This is Sur. They drew it as a very nice picture on the wall, and the team of the school loved it, and they really praised the team for doing that. In Tibnin, Mohamed Harajdi, who didn't even visit the team when they visited them, so they were there for like 10 days, and I told him that at least drop by, يعني معلش, and again, Mohamed is a friend, so that's why I told him at the time. And he said, oh, okay, okay. Then they never met him. He never even tried to see them. So at least you have to drive all the way there, but at least, you know, it was having just coming by. So there was mainly landscape and civil student who worked on this very harsh terrain. And it was really a hard work because they had to level everything and clean and do an interesting landscaping, which was also prepared before, designed before. And eventually, you'll not see Nihal in this project because she was driving all around. She was supervising, so maybe she's in one of the pictures somewhere. But really, this was a very nice project. If you see it before and after, it's not very clear what happened here because still it's not ended. But it's become a garden of the Tibnin village. This was Hafiz Anavat al-Balda. They took a picture for me on it, came in with it, and I have it in the center. Ah, this is Nihal, right? Okay. Okay, so, okay. Another village, Maisel Jabal, again, this was quite a challenging work because it was cultural. The village themselves proposed what they wanted. They wanted something to represent their history in stones, in how the material evolved. So our team is working there. So they created like the different patterns of the material, from the sand to the sandstone to the marbles, etc. And everyone has its own year. So it became like a ma'lam for people to see and visit the history of the village in that little spot. And again, the team is there, and I think Nihal is there too. So I'm studying, she's everywhere. So Tire was also another challenging landscape and civil work, this was probably much better prepared because the municipality was rich. They gave material, and they wanted something very nice and fancy, and the hard work was there. These were donated toys, and eventually this is what you got at the end. So from a week work, I think this makes a change and actually the problem was that every time they worked in the night, I mean the day, they had to rework the same thing in the morning because the kids came in and before everything was still settled, the stones were settled, then later on they joined them to do the fixing. So it's like, who did that? We don't know. So they came and helped them. But the kids of the village were very much involved, and they have many here in the background. You get sometimes these little things credited to you, so you will see this there, CES and EUB. And I left this at the end because this has another connotation, and we started seeing now more something of a technical work that could have more repercussions on the learning. This is Sarafand, and now this is the major thing, the crisis of the century, if you want to call it, the Syrian refugees in Lebanon. This is one of the settings that they live in. The proposal was from the center to create a different way of living, still keeping it like a temporary shelter, but influencing the shelter in a different way, in living in a different way. So the team, after convincing one of the people there to rebuild his shelter in a different way as a model, he accepted, although he was skeptical. He thought this is going to be removed and no one will escape, no one will do it. But eventually, there is a video on that. I couldn't open it here. This is what ended up with, and I have a series of other pictures. This is a very simple system, like 4 steel columns with plywood, simple things. Nothing is really structurally fixed. Everything can be dismantled. It's like the mechanism, ألعاب mechanism زمان, so you can remove it. It is still called a temporary shelter, and that was the purpose. For the government's sake and for everyone's sake, we wanted to keep this idea that these are still temporary shelters so that they will not be prevented. We have many of these now, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. This is the team who work on that. Many of them are civil. At the same time, kids were around and they had to be kept a bit busy because they were coming in and again messing up the whole site, and our students also go there and work with them in terms of teaching, playing, painting, etc. So every time we have a project, there are many supporters, and this is very important, whether from AUB, from outside. The center here supported the SFC, Khatib Alami, CCECS, Dean's office, of course, and department. I'm not sure why it's not mentioned here, but because you didn't visit, but I think many faculty visited us. I would like to really credit Majdi, Isam, they're all came in and helped in that project. George Saad, ما هو Isam, I mentioned. I should mention families. It's Dr. Isam Sroor, Dr. Majdi, and they continued with us. That's the best part. And everyone was interested in there and continued with us. And when I say continue, to move immediately into the story by just, 30 seconds intermission, there are many projects which started either from a camp or not from a camp. But at least two examples of these. One of them was in Marwahi. And I'm saying this because this year we're continuing the project of Marwahi. There is another project about shelters. And again, we're continuing. But there are many others which continue, and I will not show. The reason I'm putting this is because today, if you check one of the posters, I'm not sure if it will in the best poster, but this is not the issue here. But this is basically a project that was undertaken by one of the teams of FYP here, based on what has happened. They worked with, I was the advisor, Dr. Majdi was an informal co-advisor here. I mean informal, it means he was helping in all aspects. In terms of building this shelter now as more of a camp rather than one shelter for one person, one family. So with some funding that we have been able to attract, and we're getting a lot of funding for these types of, everyone wants to fund anything about cities, but then most of the money is gone. What we're doing is little things that are not going to change the whole world, but we get this, we do that for you. We get this, we do that for you. We're using it for education. We're using it for building shelters. These are some things that are being built already. We have these pictures now. Some of them are used as schools. Some of them, of course, as bathrooms. So the interventions which now are being in place are also on sustainable solutions. Majdi is working on the lighting with solar panels and with the cookers on solar energy, because these are extremely efficient in these places. The infrastructure of the sewer systems, everything is also being developed in these places. The education, medical, we're dealing with the medical school. So the whole now, AUB has what we call a task force, AUB task force for the Syrian refugees program. We call it the AUB SRP, collecting donation flows, etc. But this is one of the most important because it's been very attractive as a solution for how to build shelters that are still temporary but livable and sustainable. And also, as you can see, the team has worked, I mean, the pictures are not very clear. They have also worked on the modeling. So it became an education experience from all aspects for many teams. So the team who's doing this is also present here. You can just choose names. And they have it like part of their now mission, not just deliverable of the project. They feel that this is the importance of it becomes part of their own daily life. I mean, maybe not, maybe yes, but I think that they have been affected by it besides the technical side. So many things that you can learn from here, and you develop it into this project. The other one, which started actually from a camp in 2007 or 8, it developed, and I will show a few pictures here. This was started by developing a water pond. Dr. Basha was co-supervising. He was very harsh on the students sometimes. Didn't know that they had to travel sometimes to Marwahin for 3 hours to go and come back. But at least he gave them quite a good feedback, and to the point where the project was really implemented, and with the fund from UNDP. So this is the final deliverable, which the team, or the center and the team presented. This is like a full-fledged report. The technical FYP report became part of what we presented also. The poster, of course, was developed, but again, it's not about a poster or a problem, it's just a report. It was about something brief. So this is what you had before. Almost done. So basically, the project is Every Drop Matters by UNDP. This is the initiative that they worked on. During that year, I was supervising, Dr. Basha was supervising. So this is what the status of this big pond. It gets empty 2 to 3 months after rainfall because first the seepage, the walls are not well. All the catchment of water in the village, which is supposed to come from rainwater and fill this pond, this very big pond, which is the center of the village, it was the life of the village. It really became useless. And this is the picture that's taken in June. There have been a redesign of the pond, the releveling, everything, the membranes, the walls, and the catchment. And this continued the year after with another team, which Dr. Hajj also supervised. And still, we need to bring the water better to this pond. But at least we know that from this project, this is how the pond looks in about July. Maybe June, July. So it will remain so until I think September. And then you have 2 months of dry, they stay, then they will use their wells, and they fill the pond from the wells. So it became also a practical place to store it. And you really feel like this is about August. Okay, there's still a little bit water remaining. They had to bring these tankers inside. These are from, I mean, this is our room, we visited and took these pictures. These were from other villages who came in, and the municipality now had a system. They take like 2,000 liras to cover the cost of al-mazut that they have to pay later because they need to fill it from. They became like, they tried to work out the system to their advantage, but every village now was depending for this little water that was remaining. And when we say students' involvement, this is a team which started the first part, and here this is during construction they used to visit. Sometimes they used to work with them, sometimes supervise, and we have 2 students here. You can see them, right? So they still remain attached to the project the year after. Now, we continue doing this work for the water, but then this year it evolved into something where the funder bought a piece of land in Marwahin because of this project, and they want to build what we're calling the Marwahin. This is an older version of the poster. Okay, so the new version is laying outside, but this stems again from the same idea and continuing with. You can see the educational side here is still as a project, but at least you can see that this is the pond. This is the study that was done before on the background, and the theme is again here. This is the proposed technical center. It's not a school. You're not allowed to work with a school without the government's rules, but this is a resource center where the municipality of Marwahin will assist in providing some resources, and the team worked around from the idea of the pond. Now they have this bringing alternative agriculture, bridging the knowledge with the practice, because people there know much more than we do, but then they lack certain aspects. And these are technical centers which will be built in Merwahi that will serve the whole cluster of village. And whenever it's built, this was done after the whole research of the whole cluster. So we had all the data and what's needed. And now it's becoming a reality. And again, the team were working more on the water resources, but also on the technical development of the center itself. So because basically, they go there, they visit it, they build the model, and they are just now developing it as a typical project. But again, the aim is obviously that this is going to be implemented and the money is there, the land is bought, and this is a real land. I don't know if there's a picture of it, but I mean, the other picture with the surveyor, I mean, it's not here now. They did and surveyed the land and they did it as a real project, and it's now under final development for implementation. And again, the team was supervised formally by myself and Dr. Meldi, and now the names are there on the new poster. So I would just to re-emphasize the fact that not all projects start from a camp. We cannot have a camp. It's already a camp. So when we say summer camp, we do very well that we're in the camp there, or it's a re-camp. So if you go to Amir Henry, we really know what the disasters is in terms of living, not just because of the shanty living, they live all of the political aspects, the surrounding, they cannot go out and in, etc. But again, there is a political issue involved here, and everything gets mixed up. At the end, people suffer a lot. So whatever you can do there will become quite a substantial initiative that will work. So this is an intervention we have, and again, we have supporters for this. They support the study, they support the implementation, and this was done through a structural project, and agriculture, and landscaping, and sustainability, where there was a building which is run by women there. We could not find a partner to work with in the camp because every time you team with a partner, they happen to be affiliated with a party or a sector there, and then you get into trouble. So the only people whom we could work with is a group of local women who were the strongest in terms of taking decisions. So no one would dare to approach or just disagree with them because they were united when they worked together. That's it. I mean, sometimes we have to really face problems because when you do any change and they pull up and they team together, they prevent you from making a little change because they have the power in that sense. This is their center. It was developed to become an agricultural center, a sustainable agricultural center, and again with some final pictures here. So I don't have the real pictures here, but this is the way it became, and it's there now as a reality. But then some of the, when you say you construct and you do work, you really do work there. And then you have to provide the resources to work there. You cannot have anyone to go and work there. So they were building tanks, storage tanks. There is a structural issue. These were huge tanks, and then when the lady who had her garden on top of these tanks there, when they had removed the whole garden, she stopped the project for 2 weeks. She said, I want the garden now. And she needed to be convinced that it will come back to you. And we proved it to her that if we're going to build these tanks underground, you will have like a 1 meter layer of soil, and this will come back as a garden. She liked it. When we showed her that there is a part of the camp, part of this place, which will become a terrace rather than a garden, which is concrete and then benches, she said, I don't want the garden, I want a terrace there. And literally, I mean, she asked us to stop the project because now she didn't want the garden. I mean, what's the garden for? I can have a nice terrace, it's neat and clean. So, I mean, you have to live with what people want. We had to reconvince that we can do both, and eventually, when you say these tanks needed to be built there, you cannot get Bechtel, as I said, to go into the camp, but you really have to find ways to do it. This is what was proposed, and this is what she liked. Like, you know, the garden is now on the top. So she wanted this to even be part of the garden, which she had. Well, we didn't want to do that. We kept the garden, and the veggies are in the back. She wanted everything to become now concrete. Okay, so we didn't do that. We eventually kept the whole thing. And everything there is for learning. They will have to use it as a technical learning for other ladies and women to learn from, and they can do it on their own roofs. And when you say roofs in camps, don't think that you have like these big roofs. You just have like 3 by 3 meters. And if you can hardly build Shetli, that will be great. But they will be able to sustain a little bit of their own living. They will not be able to sell, of course. goodies for outside. So real work was done. And eventually, I'll just, so you see really any drawing steel, there are steel stairs, you couldn't do other than that. They had the problem of trying to prevent anyone, they wanted to put stairs from the ground floor going up. They canceled the project because anytime there is a conflict, people will come into the center to hide. And they didn't want them to climb on the stairs. So they asked us to start the stairs from the first floor, never to start the stairs from the bottom floor. Anyway, so a setting, and this is the al-khaymi on the top roof, which is used now for agriculture. So such settings are what we call quite difficult to work with, but you're saying, difficult areas, this is it. I mean, there are workshops that were done at AUB and in the camp from people from agriculture. There are others who work on civil. So, and this was also another great experience because it was really in a hard setting and it was a real implementable project. And the last picture. Actually I have to leave soon because the other half of me now is supposed to be in West Hall because we have an event. If you know this guy, you know him? Anyone knows? Maroon Baghdadi. We have a 3-day festival. The proceeds will go to support public education, but the idea is that Maroon Baghdadi was one of the very rare filmmakers, directors, who did the best movies at a time when no one knew what is a Lebanese movie. There were few of them. But this was from documentary to serious movies in the 70s and 80s, and he passed away in a very stupid way, which is falling from the stairs during a dark night during the war, just بالمنور. And that was in the early 90s, and we're commemorating his movies. If you want, there is a display in West Hall for his works today. There are 3 movies of his best, actually the few of his movies because he didn't survive much. Today, tomorrow, and after tomorrow at 7, Beirut, Ya Beirut, حروب صغيرة, the best, I guess. I remember seeing it in Cinema Hamra, if you know what Cinema Hamra is. Now it's Brisk. Okay. I saw it probably in 1981 or 82. So you're welcome. This is what we do in the center, and this is what we try to do with others, like you civil engineers, and we're hoping to do more. I hope the team from next year on will do much more than what we did, at least as a team. The team is there. They will be receptive to any idea you have. And I guess 50% of you here were involved with us. And I tried, I hope, Salah, of course, was, شو مشي الحال؟ ضبطت معك. And I'd like also to really appreciate Mu'tasim specifically when we discuss community project and FYP at the beginning of the year. He always says, make sure to give us 2 or 3 of these. Now, they are not always the best successful because some of them, it's not like because the team may not do the best work, because the project themselves are difficult. And you have seen what we mean by difficult, the areas, the setup, working in refugee settings, working in حدود, in عن الحلوي. But he always appreciated that, and he commended the teams for working on these. And we hope to continue this.